It is great in your CV, but you know कि पैसा नहीं मिला, पर a lot of
Sometimes the universe is a little too difficult on us. You feel you won't make it, and that there is no hope left at all. But one must keep rolling, because life becomes a little easier when you have someone to share the load with. And when you least expect it, the rains will go away, and it will all be sunny, like a story of the summer. Welcome to Alive and Kicking with Rahul Bamne. New episodes every Friday.
Welcome to Alive and Kicking,
Very
where following our hot favorite first topic about suicides and ways to die. We have come to daylight savings.
I think every guest has heard this story, but we didn't add it to the podcast, so not a lot of audience know this. So I think Rahul, we should tell the story, and you must tell this story to everyone कि कैसे चालू हुआ और कैसे how this came into existence.
So yes. I think we discussed this with every guest because they just wanted to know why is it alive and kicking and how did it come into force and all of that. This was because when I was in college in BMM, there was this one phase in second year where a lot of people just came to me, every morning and they would ask me, "How are you? How are you? How are you?" And because I was almost like this person who just kept meeting people every morning, hugging them every morning, it became sort of like a habit to do it. And there was this one day where somebody asked me, I'm not sure, I think it was Mahi, somebody in the class just asked me like, "What's up? How are you?" And I just said, "I'm alive and kicking." And that struck with me over the years, and I every time somebody came to ask me how I'm doing, and if I was in a great mood, I just kept saying, "I'm alive and kicking, I'm alive and kicking." So that's how that so when we were discussing, when I was obviously ideating in the beginning, what should we name this podcast, it was going to be named I think it was going to be named villain number one or something like that, where a podcast where people come and talk about the bad things they have done in life just to sort of remorse and like heal and stuff. But then I went back to this term. It came in handy, and then you guys came on board, and so that's how it began. So the next time anyone asks us how we are doing, we just say alive and kicking.
So Rahul takes care of the entire content part of this. Every podcast ideation क्या बात करना है सब कुछ राहुल देखता है. I take care of the platform allotment किधर क्या जाएगा. So if you haven't checked YouTube, that I know a lot of you haven't, go check YouTube का content और कहीं नहीं है other than Spotify if you have heard the entire 1 hour 30-minute episodes. uh, then Vivian takes care of the entire graphic thing. Everything, the entire wall that Rahul has filled with the alive and kicking content is made by Vivian, and, and the entire editing part, from cutting the audios to matching the lip sync, that gave Mayank a lot of headache over the entire podcast. सब editing Mayank ने किया है. uh, so Mayank, Tera, how has been your experience editing the entire thing, and what are the things that you learned during this process?
Okay, so while getting on this podcast, I was like कि ठीक है podcast है, दो एंगल मिल ही जाएंगे, फिर ऑडियो भी रहेगा. We just have to sync and we just have to cut जिधर जो भी बोल रहा है whatever. It's going to be pretty easy process because editing में hard process is matching and then making that rhythmic cut and all of that. So I like इसका तो cutting easy होगा. So I was like okay ठीक है fine, let's do it. मतलब while starting with the podcast, I was like, कि अरे एक दिन का काम होगा and then I'll get done with this. But then what? but then what happened during the course of the podcast is कि, because we had audio and syncing issues in every single podcast, I had great help from Vivian, and then we sorted out ways कि how we'll do this. Okay, ये podcast के लिए ऐसे sync करेंगे and all of that. So what I learned through this process was कि initially when we started with the first podcast, I think we took a week or two to compile everything, and then uh, like how the video took form of it. So बहुत time लगा था while making it, because obviously sync was off and all of those things. But then while doing this process over and over again for 9 episodes, uh, I learned a lot of shortcuts and a lot of quick ways of syncing audios. So उसके बाद I'm just now great at syncing audios. I just dump me audio and I'll sync it. So and then that is how. So I remember first episode took like a week to formulate and edit and make the first cut and then re-edit and all of that. But then towards the end, towards the ninth episode, I guess I had like shrunken it down to like 4 or 5 hours. I'd just be like, you know what, today's the day, 4 or 5 hours straight edit, and then I'll just punch out the episode. So it was, so I remember post this podcast, I got a project where I had to make a music video, and then obviously because it's a
Woo! I just feel very happy that people get work like, and yeah. Anyway, continue. Yeah.
so yeah, and then obviously because it was a music video, a lot of instruments, a lot of musicians playing, and all of them, and all of them were concerned because maybe they might have tried their hand on editing, but then all of them were concerned ki, how will you sync all of this, and isn't sync the major problem and all of that. I was like ठीक है.
You wait. You wait.
And then I synced ऐसे 21 files together and then I was like ठीक है अभी हो गया.
I think and we should mention कि हम 4 लोग जिन्होंने पॉडकास्ट बनाया वो अब तक कभी मिले नहीं है. राहुल इनिशियली बोरिवली में बैठा था जो अभी लंदन में बैठा है. मयांक मीरा रोड में बैठा है. विवियन हाँ विवियन मीरा रोड में बैठा है और मैं थाने में बैठा हूँ. और the entire process that happened on online video calls, sometimes phones, other times on text, and everything got sorted out. So
We have
anyone
Yeah.
would
tried.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. You have to emphasize this so much. You have to say it louder for the people at the back that we ran an entire podcast without even meeting once. We did not. We didn't meet even once in the quarantine lockdown. Jo bhi tha in India, you know. And we were so close. Forget now. Now that there was no chance. But when we were back, there, we did
Right.
not. We just can you believe we achieved this just sitting in front of our screens? And
We are ideal citizens. We follow all of the lockdown rules and guidelines.
Shut up. I know how many parties you've been to, and if it wasn't, yeah, you remember we thought of taking that 1 week break, which turned into a 2 week break because Mayank fell sick, and then Mayank had his big Mumbai University exams,
Yeah.
which were obviously a horror, but yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So when I joined, I remember Rahul texting me at I think 2 in the night when Rahul was in India and doing something. He texted me in the night asking कि तू podcast पे काम करेगा क्या? I have this idea. I think we can make this happen. And so we talked that night. I think एक 1.5 घंटा we talked about that, and then तभी लॉकडाउन भी नहीं था और तभी वी वर इनिशियली प्लानिंग कि हम लोग देखेंगे घर पे होगा क्या स्टूडियो मिलेगा क्या एंड देन इवेंचुअली द होल थिंग ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ आई थिंक 2 or 3 months we got into this and then Mayank joined and Vivian was with us over this planning process and so I remember Vivian uh, giving a lot of great रिकॉर्डिंग इनपुट्स कि हम क्या यूज करें हमें ये ऐप यूज करना चाहिए रिकॉर्डिंग के लिए हमें ये माइक्रोफोन यूज करना चाहिए हम ये कर सकते हैं ऐसा बनाएंगे वैसा बनाएंगे
It's funny how initially, like, at least when me, Rahul, and Rohan were like ideating very initially, I think this was like March, April-ish,
Yeah.
maybe. Like, at that point, we had like an idea of like, huh,
आई
yeah,
थिंक लॉकडाउन के पहले
yeah,
मार्च
basically
March,
that time. Yeah.
March
So that
beginning, March.
Yeah, so that time we had an idea that we will rent out space. We'll figure out whose house is the prettiest so we can go to and record.
yeah
We were looking
we
at
go to
rentals of cameras.
then we can call some guest to some studio then we can find a
Yeah.
house near their living spaces क्योंकि कुछ गेस्ट ऐसे थोड़े से थोड़े से अच्छे थे, जिनको ऐसे बहुत दूर बुलाना अच्छा नहीं लग रहा था.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like, and just overnight, I think within a span of like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we had like changed the whole game plan where we are like, now we need to do it on Zoom because like that was the only point, only thing we could have done at that point. And oh God, I remember in the initial days, we had like upteen number of idiotic problems. Like I remember even it's so weird that even though I was the graphic designer, I had no laptop when all of this started to begin with. And yeah, then my laptop, like I got my laptop repaired somehow, and it wasn't that great either. I know so many episodes where my internet went away. Like everyone's internet has gone off at some point. Then even with guests, we had so many issues. But I feel what was constantly getting us through was the will to go on. And I think if a pandemic couldn't stop the podcast from happening, then I don't think shitty internet would have. So I think that's a great thing that we've achieved, so to say.
Used to love those Excel sheets. I never asked for them. I never asked for them, and they came. They just came after that episode, and I was so satisfied that they did. Because I did not have to go through that pain, and I know it's not. I mean, writing that down or maintaining that sort of a track is not easy. So every time after the second episode, I kept looking forward to that Excel sheet that came. So it was just easier for me to see, oh, this is one, this is two, this. I did not even take those because it was the whole point was that you guys take calls and you guys whatever. Not that I'm saying that you guys need to learn, but just the fact that you had that independence and freedom, to do it. And Rohan just took calls like saying, this is going to be the first bit of Insta, this is going to be the second one, this is the third one, and then I just had to name them and they went out. Like that's how easy I felt it was. And those Excel sheets, man, I think you should just save them, treasure them. Maybe like on your private account, upload them saying you have no idea how much this means to me. That's
Yeah.
amazing, genuinely.
I think I think in this process we had a lot of interesting educational, informative stuff uh, on our way. I think personally,
Which only we listen to, by the way. Like we
yeah,
listen to the entire podcast, and then we know कि हर एक जन ने क्या क्या offer किया, and we learn through that. So few people are missing out because they are not tuning into it and listening to the entire podcast. But if they do, they might listen to the knowledge that we gain during these 9 episodes.
yeah. And for that, I think all of you should start a podcast. And I think but that's what we wanted to do, right? We wanted to start conversations where in the process everyone learns something. So in the process we four learnt a lot. Then we passed it on to people who listen to our podcast, who get, I think, 50% of it or 40% of it. And then they maybe share it with people, share stories. That's how it works, I feel. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, it does because I'll tell you. So some people don't realize this, and I only realized this when Vivian brought this up somewhere in the middle of the podcast, saying the fact that I am sharing so much of my life on a podcast of 9 episodes, 1 hour each, when three different people are listening to my life. So you three basically know almost like, let's say, 50% of everything in my life right now, right? Because you've heard it, and you've probably heard me repeat a lot of things in every episode, which might have been tiring, but that was the whole point of it, कि एक ऐसा podcast बनाना है कि कुछ like कुछ मिले तुमको उससे, because, and I'll tell you, like Mayank said, if firstly, if you know anyone on this panel of 9 people, this is to anyone who is listening. If you know someone from this panel of 9 people, you should listen to the podcast, because and there's like this timing to listen to those things. Like I feel like if you're in that melancholy feeling where you don't know why you're sad, but you're still sad, you should tune into something like, Sharon, the essence of vulnerability. If you're like in a very happy mood, you want to laugh a little, just tune into like Mehak, giggling through life. And there's
or,
like
or, or I think or this
Sufyan.
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 Sufyan. Sufyan.
Sufyan was
Yeah.
entertaining, yeah.
You know
But
it.
also subtly very informative. He covered the entire radio bit that I didn't know about. Then he covered the entire acting part that I didn't know about. But he went so well through it कि ऐसा लगा कि ये entertaining चल रहा है. पर we gained a lot of insights in the industries through that podcast.
And we ended up naming it Actors on Activism, because obviously it covers his career, his passion, what he does subtly, satirically, and a whole lot of things. Like, I think it was really informative. To बहुत ही था मतलब. I hope you will remember some of the conversations we've had, like over 9
So
episodes.
I think me and Mayank had listened to the podcast every episode at least पांच मैं तो 5 बार सुना है मयांक तो so, in the entire process, we four gained a lot of insights, and I think uh, we passed it on to people, and now they are watching it, they are listening to it.
I hope they are. I don't know because I don't know how else to like Rohan, how to amplify this. I genuinely don't know. Like, do we do paid promotions so that more people could listen to it? Because there is genuinely so much to listen to from every podcast. Like,
But as
and
we discussed now, ki once you're in that mood and then suddenly you stumble across this channel and where you find, oh, they made this podcast where just people are talking about their life stories. And then ऐसे रात में सोने से पहले someone is just listening to different podcasts and then they're like, oh, this is something cool that these four guys have done, say, over the course of quarantine. So I feel that is how if people stumble across it, that would be like a cool thing.
Yeah,
you remember,
I remember telling Rahul when we initially started discussing कि क्या ऐसे ऑनलाइन करते हैं क्या ऑडियो बुरा होगा वीडियो बुरा होगा फिर लोग सुनेंगे क्या But the fun around this is because of the pandemic, everyone is switching to the video call medium. So either Google Meets or
yeah,
Zoom calls. तो इसकी वजह से पूरा पूरा इकोसिस्टम ही वो वीडियो पे आ गया है. तो this was the best time to start this thing क्योंकि सब हम without investing a lot of money, we are at the same level as other people are doing. हमारा कैमरा थोड़ा सा weak है maybe, but
smart
otherwise,
move. It was a
yeah.
smart move. I
And
think.
also, I feel like in the same way, like talking about reach, talking about people watching it, I feel a very important thing is impact. Like I like the same thing I told Rahul also and on like our group like a few days back. The fact that maybe like we knew we were starting ground up, so we knew we wouldn't like get like a lot of people overnight to watch it. Of course, it starts with your friends, your immediate family members, people you talk to, and people who would want to see your work. But I feel it's another great thing that you probably don't know how many lives you've impacted because one, all of them don't message you to tell you that. But like I think few days back, one of our posts from Sagun's episode got reposted, and Rahul asked us like, "What do you think about this?" And I think it made an impact, which is what the whole point of this was, like to make an impact, to get the conversation started, to have something to put out there that people would want to listen to and would grab their attention and leave a mark as to we've done this work. So I feel in that sense we've actually achieved what we set out to achieve in like Feb, March or whatever.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think and an interesting thing I learned from Rahul is when so though we were working together, it was Rahul who because Rahul was doing the entire content part. His part was the first, and then our role came in. So every time Rahul had to do his work and push it to us. He knew कि अगर आगे का सब कुछ ठीक नहीं हुआ तो there's a possibility कि end में fuck up हो सकता है. पर राहुल राहुल आई थिंक अगर अगर मैं राहुल की पोजीशन पे होता तो मैं स्ट्रेस से ही बहुत ये हो जाता कि अगर एक फकअप हो गया तो लग गई फिर बट ही केप्ट हिज काम एंड कंटिन्यूड फॉलोइंग अप ऐसे 2 दिन के बाद की हुआ क्या 2 दिन के बाद की हुआ क्या बट आई थिंक it's a the patience that he had for the entire thing and the I think the क्या बोलते हैं उसको I forgot the word the uh,
Perseverance.
विश्वास जो उसके पास था हमारे लिए ये देखिए at the end of the week, I think that is something I picked it up. I think मैं अपनी बहन को भी काम देता हूँ तो मुझे लगता है कि करेगी कि नहीं शिट. So I think I became a little calm and I let people do their work at their pace now. Do you
Yeah.
do you guys have anything that you picked it up over this process?
See, Vivian was my go-to person during this process. अगर राहुल
Yeah,
ग्रुप पे कुछ चिड़ा अगर है, Rahul is like, why is this not done, this and that in his tone, that, and I used
It's,
to just I used to call him
it
Vivian.
was so
I am like, अभी क्या करना है? Vivian is like, chill, कुछ नहीं, ये ऐसा, तो ऐसा करना है, ये बस, फिर आराम से हो जाएगा. Then Vivian is to just assure कि अरे हाँ कुछ नहीं, no worries
See,
bro.
this is you turning people like into you. Okay, this is I not 2 minutes ago. Rohan said I was very calm, and then you're saying Rahul goes on the group saying what is going on.
See, if everyone's learned every like a lot of things over the thing, I think Rahul has systematically learned over the episodes how to deal with other people and their work methods. Because I remember like in the start we were so like we were surprisingly on time with things. In terms of like हर दिन में ये आता था हर दिन में ये आता था like every day there would be like not a report but we would like tell each other हाँ कि ये हो गया this is the status. And by like the eighth episode, ninth episode, everyone was so automated in their own work कि late भी हो गया तो आ जाता था. But everyone knew like what they had to do. And yeah, I think that was another amazing thing.
थर्सडे को
For three
सबका आ
people,
जाता था. हाँ.
again, for three people, and let's stress on this fact, for three people who've not worked together professionally, to again form such a mechanism that works so smoothly over the internet, I think that's great. But yeah, we did reach that point ultimately by the ninth episode and the eighth episode. So yeah.
Yeah, because it was funny because you guys had never worked together. And it takes a big heart to actually find people who like each other, who respect each other for their skill, and then also like how you collectively do the entire project, which was the whole fun part of it. Like not even for a second in the entire process where I felt like somebody messaged me saying ये उसने ये नहीं किया हाँ, उसने वो, that never happened, and I'm so glad it didn't, like because it's just not us, right? I learned a lot of things personally, and it just doesn't stop, like because I'm not a calm person, like just not because of my behavior, but just generally not a calm person. So if I'm put in a room with someone like Mayank and Vivian, who are just just like this, like you yell at them, you blast a bomb in front of them, they're just like this. So it told me, or it made me feel like you can also go down to that place and just be like, so is it coming? And they'll be like, yeah, it's coming. Just give me 20 more minutes. I'm just like, okay. So that's how it went, because I think I learned calm from you, and calm from you both. And with Rohan, it was just uh, unexpected preparedness, if I'm saying it right. It, like I said, a couple of things I never thought anyone would work on, and Rohan worked on the sheets, and Rohan worked on, okay, this is how it's supposed to go for the next episode, we are doing this campaign, or we are doing this, we should ideate on this. That's how it just kept coming, and I had to, like, okay, at a point where I was like, okay, wow, he's 2 steps ahead of me. So just being prepared, or being I did not have to remind even for once, like, Excel sheet aa raha hai kya, like, what do you think of the next thing, like, do you think we should do this? I didn't have to remind anyone of their job,
The
not
fact
like.
that and the fact that I'm making the Excel sheet for this episode also is the fun
Yeah,
about the process. कि चलो
it's
हो गया
so unsaid, right?
पर फिर अभी आ जाओ काम पे लग जाओ और कर लो and we managed to do it the entire thing in the period of say 4 महीने 5 महीने.
Do you think you're going to look back at this like a professional thing, or is it just time pass? You can be honest.
I think it's a semi professional I can say क्योंकि मतलब जो इम्पोर्टेंस अनपेड इंटर्नशिप को मिलता है वही इम्पोर्टेंट.
Hmm.
It is great in your CV, but you know कि पैसा नहीं मिला, पर a lot of but one thing, you know कि you get to understand the things that goes into making creating and a lot of things that people bring on the table. तो जैसे कि Vivian का the experience that he had from Habitat, Mayank का the editing experience, your experience from the agency, the whole branding strategy part. So somewhere you get that feel. So it's definitely a semi-professional experience where your this experience definitely counts as something you did, something uh, you did professionally.
In a global lockdown. Yeah,
Yeah, also
almost.
the lockdown adds up now, because when you say कि lockdown में क्या किया and you're like कि okay, I didn't get employed or whatever, but then I was part of this project where I did this role, and all of the roles are key because only 4 people are working on this role. So ऐसे नहीं कि
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. I think if it's a project, Mayank, I feel it's. I think the next. I think you'll just be more proud when you say I ran a podcast. Like you can say like I ran a podcast, because project just makes it look like it's a schoolwork thing,
no,
But it's.
that is
Yeah, I'm just saying that I feel because I valued it like that as well, and I came here and there were people who just came to me and said, oh, so I saw your profile and you run a podcast, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, like that. And I said, yeah, it's just like a Instagram thing I thought I would start. But then, I remember Vivian and all these guys, most of the people I knew just telling me, it's not a small thing. Like some people don't even get through, like they get through the shoot, but it never makes it like
exactly,
there,
yeah. Even Harsh was talking about this thing.
Yeah,
and he's finally come with his podcast,
yeah,
the Ball Boys, where
great.
I think it's on football,
Yeah.
and a lot of Manchester United. I mean, things that I don't understand, but he's running like his own podcast. It's so cool, like people who got out of this and they ended up starting their own stuff. It's just fun.
What are your feeling about the entire thing? What do you feel?
I think, like again, like I previously said, I think when I look back at this, like a year later, when probably I'll be at work, when things have normalized much more than they already are, I think I'll always look back at this, like set of 6 months or 5 months, whatever, as this was one project that I've long term worked on, which against all odds still managed to get out there. Like at every stage, like when we've planned, there have always been changes. There have been changes on the fly regarding how we were shooting, whom we were shooting. Oh, the funniest part is, I think we should also mention this, and because it hasn't been mentioned, and this is like a BTS episode. We didn't have our last three guests, okay, till we reached the last three episodes. So again, like this decisions like these and everything like against odds, I think whole Alive and Kicking summarized for me is again a testament to the fact that if you have a will and you are willing to put energy into it, you're willing to put your hard work into it, no matter what, it will get out there. It's just you have to be that patient with your work. You have to be that calm, you have to be that adaptable, but it will get out there. And yeah, I think 6 months, one pandemic later, and like multiple devices and internet connections later, we have a podcast which has our names on it. And yeah, I think that's a great thing we can talk about later.
I'm just very happy that I did that. The entire thing, the entire process from ideating to making to working on it gave me a confidence where I know if I put in the efforts and if the planning process is good and the people you are working with are at the same page, you are going to get things done and you are going to get the final thing to the table. आई थिंक इट गेव मी अ लॉट ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस अबाउट कि हाँ अगर तुझे ये चाहिए ये चाहिए ये चाहिए ये चाहिए अभी तू काम कर और तुझे मिल जाएगा दैट दैट इज जस्ट अ काइंड ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस दैट आई डेंट हैव अर्लियर तो द होल प्लानिंग थिंग और फिर एग्जीक्यूशन वो सिस्टमैटिक प्रोसेस सीखा मैंने इन द प्रोसेस
What I feel that what we concluded from the podcast is we hustled our way through the podcast. On every single episode there were various challenges that had not occurred in the previous episodes. For example, even though we reached the ninth episode, we faced something that is not something that we had faced for 8 episodes. So every single episode we face something new, and then we are like, okay, theek hai. And because this is a digital podcast, and because it's not a multi-camera setup or recording done in a professional studio, obviously there are going to be technical glitches. And then after we get the files and footage and everything, we are like, okay, ठीक है, ये time ये problem आ गया है. Now how do we tackle this? And then we sat, we brainstormed, and then like, okay, ठीक है, इसको हम लोग ऐसे ये way से tackle करेंगे. So the hustle paid off, and I guess the way we took every single episode, okay, this is not something we've been doing it, so just another episode. So every single episode was special because we are like, okay, ठीक है, आज ये week में इसका episode है, so we have to give this wala touch, or it should appear like this, so this is what we want to put out, and we made sure that okay, ठीक है, we reach those things. So that is something that was cool that we tried doing. And obviously the part which is very underappreciated is when people form teams. Even though we worked on various group projects during college, it is very difficult to pull off like a team which is well synced with each other. I'm telling you, like if we could pull this off of a video call, I would like to have a team like this working with me on my college projects, cause उधर आमने सामने होके काम नहीं होते. So that is something I truly appreciate. We were all in sync, and we used to do all of our parts, and then like if anyone required any help, we would just help them out, and then like okay, ठीक है, this is the final product that we put. So that is what I feel.
Yeah, for me, firstly, though, I mean, I think I'm really lucky as a person because I have had 9 people say a yes to be guests on the podcast, and 3 people say a yes to full-time work on a podcast, and I consider this like a real full-time job as people. And I remember, like, and this doesn't happen, I'm telling you. This, you go anywhere and you ask anyone, you will not find people who easily get those yeses. And then, like Vivian mentioned, we did not have the last 3 guests. I just took the courage of DMing someone like Mehek, who's amazing and great at what she does. And I remember approaching Prathamesh, even though there were so many second thoughts about how will we do this, and will I make any mistakes. I was really worried about what will I do. And Sagun, who I don't even know, never met, like a lot of guests, who I never met. I have never met Sagun, I have never met Mehak in my entire life, and they said a yes to a random person on Instagram who was doing a podcast. And Sagun agreed on doing this, and he was kind enough to do it. And I just feel like this is, it really is a great thing on my resume and my personal life. Like, it has changed the last. If it wasn't for the podcast, I would have probably been really, really sad, messed up in my home in a lockdown, because I had no aim, I had no goals, and this has helped me get through the last 7-8 months, because my mind was only working on this. So yeah, it finally feels good that it's done. We finally did it. Like, it's over. It's 9 episodes are done. We started the first shoot with Sharon on 27th July, and we ended with Sagun, in October. I think in September we ended it with Sagun, and it's just been great. Like, I hope like this doesn't stop us from like being in touch and working on future and I hope I genuinely hope like Alive and Kicking should really speak for you. You should just tell people like you ran a podcast. It was your podcast. They should know that you actually, if this doesn't help you, what's the point, right? that's the whole purpose of it. So you can just go out in the world and say like, I actually was running a full-time podcast, and I hope we can just, I don't know, Rohan, how we're going to do this. We should just get like these insights and statistics about how many people heard it and how many people like saw it and stuff, and we should just brag a lot about it.
Brag about.
I think brag about it, but yeah, it's been alive and kicking. Yeah. I just felt weird because by the end of in Sagun's entire episode, I remember mentioning, uh, this is the last episode of the season. It just had this feeling that there's going to be another one. It just still does. I know it's not probably possible because we all are going to be in different places, but yeah, it's done.
Hey, you can listen to the whole podcast on Spotify. Just click on the link in the bio.